Welcome back to the Wolverine, and there's just no sugarcoating it or adding fluff to the intro today. Jim Harbaugh is back at Michigan. The three of us here, Anthony Broome, Clayton, Sayfie, Chris Balas, guys, we did it. Print the T-shirts. We survived Jim Harbaugh Watch 2023. For now, a new contract will be coming, but before we do we probably just push intros and pleasantries to the side today and just get right into it here. Hutch, if you can bring up the story or bring up the graphic from Santa Ono. Santa Ono broke the news, by the way, for anyone who said that he wasn't going to have an impact on athletics. He might be. I can't think of someone who's had a bigger impact on Michigan athletics in the last 8 or 9 years than this guy in just 3 months on the job, just in terms of the football program and he's kind of reached like this Jim Hackett kind of folk hero status. But we'll get into the newsy stuff and then get your guys' reactions on it first. Here's the statement from Santa Ono. You guys on YouTube see it on the screen here. I just got off the phone with Coach Harbaugh, and Jim shared with me the great news that he is going to remain as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. That is fantastic news that I have communicated to our athletic director, Ward Manuel. Very interesting wording there that we'll get to momentarily. Hutch, can we get the Harbaugh statement after that as well? See, as we do this live here.
Do we have like the Santa's coming from Elf? I want to see that one.
Yeah, let's pull that one up too.
You planted the seed, so Hutch will have it before this show is over.
Yes, he will.
Jim Harbaugh, Michigan football's social media accounts, quote tweets this with a statement from Jim Harbaugh that says, "I love the relationships that I have at Michigan, the coaches, staff, families, administration, President Santa Ono, and especially the players and their families. My heart is at the University of Michigan. I once heard a wise man say, don't try to out happy, go blue." And that's, of course, from Jim Harbaugh. So all of this news drops today. We know a contract extension is being worked on. We know it's in the works. It's going to give him a raise. We'll see what the details of it wind up being. We would expect the buyout on it is larger, but he's back. He's at Michigan. You've got most of the NFL guys back, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But guys, right now, just your whoever wants to start off, your initial reaction on the news of the day.
Thank God. Each one of these, like we've said, takes 7 minutes off or 7 years off our lives, each one of these coaching searches. But more than anything, kudos to Santa Ono, who we've said since he was hired, and kudos to the Regents. There it is. Kudos to the Regents, man, who hired him with the knowledge that this was a very important time for Michigan athletics as it pertains to NIL. Football obviously pays the bills for the entire athletic department or a good portion of it. And you've got to take care of your coaches, man. And who knows where this thing would have gone had Jim Harbaugh left. And you know what? There's still a lot of work to do, but they are humming right now. I think the buyout is going to be significant. The numbers that we heard last week were $8 to $9 million that he had agreed to for a buyout, and that he would be among the top 5, the average of the top 5 paid coaches in the country. So I think he will be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, as he deserves to be, frankly, if we're being honest. It took him a while to get there, but he got there. Red Sox lover. You know what? It's fair to, it's as far as athletics go, it's fair to say that Santa is already the best president in the history of Michigan, because we are obviously what we do. We care about that. Academics is first and foremost, and I have no doubt that he will leave his mark there too. There was somebody told me from the inside. They said they had a meeting with the U of M hospital, and they were talking about departments that were on top, and then other ones that were like on the cusp of the top 10. He goes, "Well, why aren't they in the top 5 or top 3?" So he has high expectations for everything, including athletics, which is, as we all know, is the front door to the university. And this is amazing. The guy is incredible, and just kudos to him, and grateful that this is over.
Yeah, just huge news for Michigan. They had a bunch of guys return over the last several days for another season, but nobody more important than the head coach. There's no head coach out there you'd rather have if you're a Michigan fan in this spot. I mean, you could promote from within. You could look at some candidates that people float out there. If he were to have left, none of them anywhere near as good as bringing back your head coach with, it looks like, the staff and a bunch of talented players. So this is huge for Michigan, not only in 2023, But going forward, Mike Kliss, a Denver reporter, says that Jim Harbaugh called the Broncos this morning to notify them of his decision to stay. They never got close to talking a contract or an offer, but he pulled his hat out of the ring. Broncos don't believe he was using them as leverage. So Jim Harbaugh kind of comes to a decision. And as you said, Chris, I mean, hats off to Santa Ono. I thought both statements were really telling and interesting. Santa Ono saying that he received the call from Jim Harbaugh and then notified Ward Manuel. And then Jim Harbaugh saying that he appreciates Santa Ono, the administration, no mention of Ward Manuel, first and foremost, the players and the exact quote that Anthony read earlier on. But Santa Ono able to get it done. Certainly not surprising that Jim Harbaugh is back at Michigan, but it's definitely good resolution. Now they can move on and kind of get into the offseason a little bit earlier than they did a year ago. And winter workout started today. Spring ball is in probably 6 weeks or something like that. We're rolling here, and I feel like it's time for football season already. I think there's 245-ish days until the season. I can't wait.
Man, that's crazy.
I know.
I want my summer. I need my summer, Clay. Don't wish it away.
Me too. But it's winter right now, so I'm kind of like, give me the football.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice too when we sit and we, again, this isn't. It's over. He's coming back to Michigan. The saga will officially close itself out when the details of this contract are worked out. But also, this is 3 weeks earlier than last year. Last year, he got on a plane on National Signing Day. I think ultimately announced he was returning on the second National Signing Day. It's the least consequential of the two, but now I think it's notable that on the day that it kind of fits together perfectly. First day of winter workouts, NFL draft decision day, which we'll talk about those guys that are coming back here in a little bit. But I do want to talk about, not to get too in the weeds about the administrative stuff and stuff that might be going on behind the scenes, but I want to read this tweet from John U. Bacon because it kind of speaks for itself. It sums up how I feel about the statement and the way it was presented and Santa Ono breaking the news. John says, yes, Harbaugh called the UM president, not the AD. I'm sure the deal could not have been done without the AD, but it's probably true it wouldn't have been done without the president either. And no, it's not a great look for the AD coach relationship. It speaks for itself. So the elephant in the room, guys, is kind of, I don't know what it means for Ward Manuel. I think the way that things have been worded in these statements the last couple of weeks have been very deliberate in terms of, I won't say there's very clearly some kind of disconnect with the three parties here. And the fact that one of the concerns I have about the Santa Ono thing is now that every time there's some kind of issue that can't be worked out between adults, you have someone who has to come in and be the intermediary. And that's not tenable to me. So I guess, Chris, I'll go to you. I mean, you being have a few more ears to the ground administratively than we do. What is going on there right now?
Well, I don't think there's any question that to call the what you said, all between three of them. I think it's really between two. I think it's Ward and Jim, and I think it's a little bit frosty. And I think it still goes back to 2020, and when Jim got his pay cut in half, fair or not. I think he was still stung about that. And then last year, had to negotiate his way back up to, I think, just short of what his initial contract was at Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. I think Clay's brought that up a number of times. I don't think that sat very well. But and in speaking to people close to it, I can pretty much guarantee that. These guys have egos. No matter what you want to say about, like, Jim Harbaugh giving his bonus money to spread it across the athletic department to make a statement or whatever, it's a kick in the groin. So to his credit and to Ward Manuel's credit, to Santa Ono's credit, they got it done. This was by far the best outcome. So, but what does it mean, like you said, for the Ward Manuel Jim Harbaugh relationship going forward? That's the big one. So you're going to hear all kinds of rumors and rumblings and everything else. And at the same time, what really matters is peace and quiet now, guys. We don't need to hear anything else in the news. We don't need the president chiming in on anything else, like you said, Anthony. And I don't think we're going to see that. I think you're going to see, unless somebody drags their feet on NIL, because it's very clear now that what the president believes about that is, too. He's gotten so many emails and DMs and everything about that. And what are we going to do to keep up, and so on and so forth. Hopefully he understands now, or doesn't feel the need now to get involved. There won't need to, I guess, put it that way. So, but it's great news, fellas, again. And as long as everything now is kept behind the scenes, we'd appreciate that because we don't want to have to analyze everything that's said.
For sure. And here's something too. If you are concerned about the head coach athletic director relationship, since there was maybe a fracture in that relationship, potentially, Michigan's won 2 Big Ten titles, beat Ohio State, made 2 college football playoffs. So in terms of football results, I'm not necessarily worried about that. They kind of operate, the way they do inside Schembechler Hall. Things, obviously issues come up, things like that, where there needs to be communication. And it seems like that has been there. I've seen those two communicate and have their arm around each other at different points throughout this season. So obviously they can, they can do things like that and attend events together and all that. I don't think it's anything like that. But going back to 2021, in January of that year, when Ward Manuel did cut Jim Harbaugh's pay, and you get columns from national writers talking about how groundbreaking and what a great decision and how tactful it was by Ward Manuel to get that done. It kind of looks like it didn't blow up in his face because Jim Harbaugh is still here and Michigan's won at a high level. But it certainly, and I said this at the time as well, I didn't understand it. Either you want him or you don't, right? And Jim Harbaugh is a very competitive individual, and I think he doesn't forget things. He does not forget little comments that a coach had made 10 years ago, and then they play him, and you see him run up the score a little bit, things like that. So he certainly doesn't forget that. But yeah, I mean, Santaona comes in, saves the day, and we'll see what that relationship is going forward. But I agree with you, CB. I don't want to have to deal with cover and stuff like that. And I don't think we will either. We'll stick to football, which is kind of what I enjoy much more than the drama of it. And things on the football field look really, really good.
Let me say one more thing real quick, AB. You can really, some people will want to praise Ward Manuel and say, hey, you lit the fire under Jim Harbaugh by cutting his salary, and now you brought out the old Jim, the jackhammer, and look what's happened the last 2 years. So, and I don't think that's entirely unfair. I think Jim, again, these guys all have egos. So, I'm not going to say I'm going to give credit to Ward Manuel, knowing that he knew if he cut Jim's salary that he was going to go out and win at a high clip. However, there does seem to be some correlation there. We got the really good focused Jim Harbaugh there.
Counter argument there is a guy with that level of competitiveness was going to want to right that wrong either way, right the ship. This stuff is unknowable, as Jim Harbaugh would say. And I agree. Your point could absolutely be the case as well. Either way, they're sitting in a pretty good spot at this point.
They are, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think chief among it, as we kind of wrap up this segment, we'll move into what the NFL roster or the NFL decisions looked like here. But my final thoughts on it are, let's not forget why Michigan is here too. It's taken a special group of guys. It's taken a special group of assistant coaches, players, and Jim Harbaugh gets credit for that. And everyone had a fire lit under them. So, and I mean, listen. It's kind of hard when you see these guys coming back and you see, the type of guys that have been able to be lured back for an extra year because of NIL and things, certainly on the precipice of taking a step forward there. That's a hard job to say no to. And for as much frustration as there's been with Jim Harbaugh about having let's just say one foot out the door, or at least a wandering eye the last few off seasons, it is time for Michigan to commit to him too. It was time to do it last year, put this to bed for good. But now he's done it 2 years in a row. You've made 2 college football playoffs. He's a top 10, top 12 head coach at any level of the sport. He needs to be paid as such. He shouldn't have to earn millions of dollars of his salary back by accomplishing things that, let's be honest, are going to be hard to do year in and year out. So the fact that Michigan it seems willing to step up and do this. Also, the fact that it seems like Harbaugh and his camp is willing to cede a little bit of ground and the buyout numbers go up. Let's not do this again next year. People talk about us all the time. Oh, this is just clickbait. They're just fear-mongering. No, we can get our clicks by talking about what the depth chart will look like next year, talking about what position battles could be next year. And we will do that this week. We're ready to move on and do that.
Amen.
But the fact of the matter is that this is not a dalliance. This is not a rain dance, so to speak, that this program can do every year and have that be sustainable. So this window is still open for them. They've done a tremendous job in getting guys back and adding to the, adding guys to the transfer portal. But this is where the stability comes from, in committing to your head coach. If you want to be one of those top 5 programs in all of college football, you have to pay him top 5 money. And I think that it seems like they're willing to do that. So,
yep, without a doubt. And that's, what, here we are. So it took a while to get here. And I've said this in the past, man, if this were 30, 40 years ago when it's just being played out in the newspapers or something like that, you'd maybe read 2, 3 articles. Now you've got everybody disseminating every little piece of information, us included. Remember last year, it was absolutely crazy. The stuff that we would get on a daily basis and that the 3 of us would talk about, it's like, this is nuts, and this just happened in Schembechler Hall, so, but these things are fluid and they change as well quickly. So, frankly, just glad it's over, and let's move on. Let's talk about something else, man. And the fact that the coaches all look like they're going to stay. Sharon Moore coming back for another year is absolutely huge. And I think Matt Weiss would be interested in calling a few more plays from what we've heard. Maybe be a little bit more involved in the play calling. So we'll see how they work with that. But basically, you have your nucleus intact and then some, with all the players coming back, and you're adding some veterans that I think are going to even solidify the culture even more. It'd almost be disappointing, guys, if they didn't win 3 in a row.